Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating journey. We're going to translate a highly personal story from a woman named Tiffany, who basically took a giant leap of faith and moved to Spain, into a universal look at what it actually means to leave the rat race behind. If you've ever daydreamed about just, packing up and starting completely over in a foreign country, this is absolutely for you. We're going way beyond those glossy travel brochures to look at the real day-to-day grit it actually takes to build a life abroad. And to really grasp this, let's start with a massive number: 26. That's how many years she ended up staying in Spain. Now, why is that number so staggering? Well, because she originally packed a single suitcase for what was supposed to be a simple one-year gap year. She was just a teenager looking for a quick adventure, and instead, it literally became her entire adult life. And those 26 years perfectly illustrate the massive contrast between where she started and where she ended up. Just think about it. In the year 2000, you have this naive, innocent teenager moving to Malaga. By year 2, she hits a major crossroad when she's cut off financially. And then, jumping a quarter century into the future, she has a home, a husband, and 2 kids. It immediately makes you wonder, how on earth did she get from point A to point B without just giving up and booking a flight home?
To answer that, we have to rewind. Let's get into section 1, the gap year gamble.
To really understand the mindset of someone taking this kind of leap, we have to look at where she started. According to the source, she was just 19 years old at the time. She was studying social sciences at Dawson College in Montreal, but honestly, she felt like it was entirely a waste of time. She was totally unsure of her life's direction. So, what do you do when you're 19 and completely lost? Well, you gamble. She packed a suitcase, grabbed her dog for company, convinced a best friend to join her, and just moved to Malaga, Spain. It was kind of the ultimate carefree escape.
But obviously, carefree escapes don't last forever. Section 2, the reality of isolation.
That honeymoon phase shattered exactly 3 months later, when her friend decided to pack up and leave. The sheer weight of culture shock hit her all at once, leading to this incredibly raw realization. She said, quote, "I had never felt so alone in my life." Suddenly, she's a teenager sitting in a massive, empty 4-bedroom apartment in a totally foreign country, and she didn't even speak the language. It's that terrifying moment where the vacation ends and the panic really begins. Out of that profound, heavy loneliness, she was desperate for some kind of connection. She took her dog, which, remember, was literally her only familiar reminder of home, and went to an internet cafe. And honestly, it was there that this miraculous, tiny interaction changed the whole trajectory of her life. A stranger just asked to pet her dog. They struck up a conversation, they became friends, and that stranger eventually moved in and became her roommate. It was an absolute lifeline right when she needed it most. Which brings us to our next phase, section 3, building a real life. So these small moments of survival basically forced her to transition out of that vacation mindset. A huge part of building an actual life there was meeting Curro, the Spanish man who'd eventually become her husband. But you have to keep in mind, this was the year 2000. iPhones weren't a thing. We didn't have instant translation apps in our pockets. Because he barely spoke English and she was still learning Spanish, like struggling to even roll her R's to pronounce his name, they literally had to pass a physical, heavy dictionary back and forth across the table just to have a conversation. I mean, think about the patience and dedication that takes compared to how we communicate today.
And then, after a full year of this adventure, the reality of adulthood hit her like a ton of bricks. Her father cut off all financial support. The free ride was officially over. She had a major choice to make: pack it up and go back to Canada or stay. She chose to stay, which meant actively searching for local employment. This was the exact turning point. She transitioned from being a wandering student on a prolonged holiday to a working resident paying her own bills in Spain. She was finally an adult.
But being an adult abroad is complicated. Section 4, the truth about Spain. Let's look at the unvarnished reality here, because it is definitely not all sunshine and sangria like the magazines want you to believe. The source is very direct about the hurdles she faced. While living in Spain can be absolutely amazing, you have to navigate some incredibly frustrating obstacles. First, there's the tangled, complex bureaucracy. Then you've got the rising cost of living that continually squeeze residents. And perhaps most frustrating of all, a really tough job market where finding employment that actually pays you what you're worth is incredibly difficult. You really have to be prepared to fight through these structural challenges. So how do you survive that without burning out? Section 5, a fundamental value shift.
Because of those tough economic realities, surviving and actually thriving abroad requires a massive internal change. If you're thinking of moving to Spain to make a fortune, yeah, you might want to think twice. In the West, we often picture success as this frantic, materialistic rush, rushing around like a lunatic, always chasing the next promotion or some fortune that feels completely out of reach. But long-term survival in Spain meant totally rejecting that rat race and adopting a completely different lifestyle. It becomes about the day-to-day, valuing your family, staying in touch with yourself, and actually allowing yourself to just have a lazy morning without feeling guilty.
But, and this is a really crucial but, you need to know that this profound shift happens little by little. You're not going to step off the plane, grab your bags, and automatically feel this wave of zen as your internal values just magically rewrite themselves. No way. Building a real life and untangling yourself from those old, deeply ingrained materialistic habits takes years of deliberate, day-to-day effort. It is a slow, steady transformation of who you fundamentally are. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The overarching lesson from Tiffany's 26-year journey isn't really a how-to guide for moving to Malaga. It's a fundamental challenge to our priorities. If you are truly willing to downsize your materialistic expectations, endure the inevitable bureaucratic headaches, and completely rebuild your values from the ground up, well, then taking a massive leap like this might be exactly what you need. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Are you really ready to trade the rat race for a real life? Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I hope this gave you some genuine clarity on what it actually takes to build a life abroad.